Long before you or I were born, in a faraway kingdom surrounded by tall mountains and silver rivers, there lived a wise and noble king. He ruled his people with kindness, and his 3 sons were known throughout the land for their beauty and strength. But one day, the old king fell very ill, so ill that the physicians and healers of the land despaired. No medicine could cure him. He grew weaker with each passing day, and sorrow filled the palace. One morning, the 3 princes walked together in the royal gardens. The sun shone faintly through gray clouds, and the fountains barely whispered, as if afraid to disturb the silence. Suddenly, a little old man appeared before them. His beard was white as snow, his eyes sparkled with wisdom, and he leaned upon a gnarled staff. "Why so sad, young princes?" he asked gently. "Our father is dying," said the eldest, bowing slightly. "No one can help him." The old man nodded slowly. "There is one thing that can save him, the water of life. A single drop will restore his health and youth. But beware, it is far away, guarded by enchantments and dangers." The eldest prince's heart burned with ambition. He cried, "Tell me where it is. I will bring it back and save my father." The old man's eyes twinkled. "Bravery alone will not help you, prince. Many have gone seeking the water of life and never returned." But the eldest would not listen. That very evening, he went to the king's chamber. "Father," he said proudly, "let me go in search of the water of life. I will find it and bring you back to health." The king sighed. "My son, the journey is perilous. I would rather die than lose you to such danger." But the prince insisted so earnestly that the king at last gave his blessing. The next morning, the eldest son rode away on his black horse, clad in shining armor. For many days he traveled through deep forests and desolate plains, until one afternoon he came to a rocky mountain pass. There, standing on a rock above the path, was a little dwarf dressed in a sugarloaf cap and a scarlet cloak. His beard was white as snow, his eyes sparkled with wisdom, and he leaned upon a gnarled staff. "Prince, whither so fast?" cried the dwarf. "What is that to you, you ugly imp?" said the prince proudly. "Stand aside." The dwarf's smile vanished. He raised his hand and murmured words that sounded like the wind through thorns. Instantly, the rocks closed in around the prince. The path grew narrower and narrower until his horse could move no further. When he tried to turn back, he found the way shut. "Ha ha ha!" laughed the dwarf, his voice echoing through the valley. "The proud must learn humility." The prince was trapped. Days passed, but the eldest son did not return. The old king grew weaker still, and the second son said, "Father, I will go in search of the water of life. My brother must have failed, but I shall not." The king was reluctant, but the second son begged until he too was given leave. He rode away through the same forests and mountains and came upon the same dwarf. "Prince, whither so fast?" the dwarf called again. "Mind your own business, little man," snapped the second prince. The dwarf's eyes flashed, and again he raised his hand. "Then share your brother's fate," he cried, and the mountain closed around the prince as it had. Time passed, and the kingdom fell into despair. Then the youngest son, gentle, kind, and thoughtful, came to his father. "Father, let me go in search of the water of life. Perhaps I may succeed where my brothers have failed." The king, his eyes dim with age, looked at his youngest son with love. "You are my dearest child. I cannot bear to lose you too." "But father," said the prince softly, "if there is even a hope, I must try." The king laid his trembling hand on his son's shoulder and gave him his blessing. So the youngest prince mounted his horse and set out. The journey was long and weary. The forests were dark and wild beasts roamed the paths. The prince shared his food with birds and rabbits and spoke kindly to all he met. At last he came to the same valley where the dwarf stood. "Prince, whither so fast?" asked the little man. The prince bowed low. "Good day, my friend. I seek the water of life to save my father who is ill and near death. Can you help me?" The dwarf's expression softened. "Since you are polite and ask kindly, I will tell you. The water of life flows in a well within an enchanted castle. To reach it safely, you must take this iron wand and these 2 loaves of bread. Strike the castle door 3 times and it will open. 2 lions lie within, hungry for flesh. Throw them the bread and they will let you pass. But be swift, the water must be taken before the clock strikes 12, or the door will close forever." The prince bowed in gratitude. "Thank you, kind friend. I shall remember your words." So he journeyed on for many days, over rolling hills, through whispering forests, and across shining rivers. At last, the dark outline of the enchanted castle rose before him, tall and silent under the moonlight. He struck the iron door 3 times, and it opened with a heavy groan. 2 great lions sprang forward, their eyes glowing like fire. The prince quickly threw them the bread, and they lay still, gnawing contentedly. Inside, he walked through golden halls where knights sat motionless, asleep under a spell. He gently took their rings and placed them on his fingers. In another room, he found a sword and a loaf of bread upon a silver table. Further on, in a chamber draped in silk, a beautiful princess sat on a couch, her eyes closed as if she dreamed. When he entered, her eyes opened, and she said softly, "You are my deliverer. If you free me from this spell, I will wait for you 1 year, and when you return, I will be your bride and queen." The prince promised to return, and she guided him through the castle gardens to the well of the water of life. The garden shimmered with flowers that glowed faintly in the moonlight. A silver fountain rose in the center, its water clear as crystal. The prince, feeling weary from his long journey, sat down to rest upon a marble seat. The air was warm and gentle, and sleep came upon him unawares. When he awoke, the clock was striking 11:15. He leapt to his feet, dashed to the well, filled his cup with the shining water, and ran toward the door. Just as he passed through, the clock struck 12, and the heavy iron gate swung shut, snapping off a piece of his heel. Breathing hard, the prince looked back at the silent castle. "Farewell, my lady," he murmured. "I shall return." On his journey home, he met the dwarf again, who smiled kindly. "You have done well. With this sword you can conquer armies. With this bread you can feed the hungry. But beware your brothers, for they have proud and selfish hearts." The prince bowed in gratitude and said, "I will not forget your warning." He traveled far and wide. In one land, he found a king whose people were starving. The prince gave him the magic bread, and the land was filled with plenty. In another, he found a kingdom at war, and he lent them the magic sword, which defeated their enemies. Everywhere he went, people blessed him and sent gifts to his father's court. At last, he found his two brothers wandering in despair. Forgetting their pride, they begged him for forgiveness. The kind prince freed them from their spell and shared food and water with them. Together, they journeyed home. But envy grew in the brothers' hearts. "If he brings back the water of life, Father will make him king," said the eldest. "We must not let that happen." One night, as the youngest slept, they secretly poured the water of life from his cup and filled it with bitter seawater instead. When they reached home, the youngest prince hurried to his father's bedside. "Father, I have brought the water of life," he said joyfully. But when the king drank, he grew paler and weaker. "Poison!" cried the elder brothers. "He meant to kill you! We saved you!" Then they gave the true water of life they had stolen. And the king was healed. The youngest prince was cast into the forest in disgrace. Though his heart was pure,